it to you as well. Yeah.
Is this geared more for like donors or for like just anyone in the nonprofit space?
We're definitely covering a lot around donor engagement, but I think it's still useful for nonprofits to know kind of characteristics of donors and things like that. Yeah.
Like this and immigration.
Sure.
Which one?
Sure, you know, both good topics. So yeah. And we're recording this as well and putting it on a podcast in case you wanted to go upstairs and then catch this later. Yeah.
Down on where? Launch. Lauderdale. Lauderdale? I'll figure out where we go. Don't worry. I know how conventions are, Craig. So, and then afterward we'll get together. Don't worry.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
Okay. I'll get started. Give me 10 seconds.
No worries. In terms of the slides, do you have a clicker for that or who's there? Yeah, let me see if they have one. So I think it's just a title slide. It's not the entire presentation, which is okay. Yeah. We have our
Testing.
notes.
Testing. Do a test on your mic.
Testing.
Yeah,
One, two,
it's
three.
moving.
Yeah, we're good.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Oh, okay.
I want to. Yeah, tap time.
All right, you got it.
Selfish reasons.
No worries, no worries, no worries. Testing, no worries, Samir. I know you got a million things. No worries.
No, I'll get. It's going smooth.
All right.
You want to say any
Mic test.
intro?
Oh, I could.
Hand it
They
off?
got me. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I am your brother Tayyab Yunus, and I am grateful and honored to be here. I'm grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to be here, the amazing Florida Muslim Federation, the amazing supporters, the amazing community that, and all the community builders who made this conference possible, not only the first time, but now I think this is year 3 that the Florida Muslim Federation Conference is happening. I'm particularly excited because I'm not sure if you guys know this, but I'm born and raised Florida. Florida's in my blood, 10 miles off the Alabama state line. I love to say that. You know, I love to say that wherever I go. I go travel the world, been to 50 countries, and I'm like, I was born 10 miles off the Alabama state line in Florida, North Florida. I love saying that. And super excited to be here. My sister is actually upstairs right now, an immigration attorney in one of the sessions speaking. We love Florida. We love Florida Muslims. We want the world to know how much the American Muslim community in Florida is making the world a better place. And that's what this session is about. This session is about making the world a better place right here from Florida for Floridians, all Floridians, not just Muslims, everyone, and also the rest of the world, because Florida is an important state. We always hear about it in the news. Everybody knows about it, not just because of Disney, not just because of Miami Beach or Daytona Beach or Clearwater Beach or Naples or whatever you pick, but because it just has so many significant reasons. So we're grateful to be here. In this session, we have an amazing guest, mashallah, with us, who I would say is a pioneer, a trailblazer in the American Muslim philanthropic community, a visionary who thought of something that not too many other people thought about. How many of you guys have heard of a DAF, Donor Advised Fund? Raise your hand. Few people. Yeah, exactly. The brother next to me is one of the founders of the first and still likely today the only Muslim-founded, Muslim-run, Muslim-operated, Muslim-managed donor-advised fund in the United States called American Muslim Community Foundation. This is my dear brother, Muhi Khawaja. Thank you for coming, Muhi.
Thank you so much, Tayyab.
And in this session, in the next hour or so, what we want to do is really gather a lot of your insights, Muhi, about Muslim philanthropy, and then sort of come back to the heroes and sheroes that are in this room. How many of you guys are board members of an Islamic school or masjid or a nonprofit? Yeah. How many of you guys founded a nonprofit? How many of you guys are volunteering for a nonprofit? How many of you guys are thinking about working in the nonprofit sector? Yeah, so everyone's connected some way to social good, and a lot of that has to do with our faith. Muslims are very faith-based and very faith-inspired when it comes to doing social good. We know in the Quran, anytime you see zakah, anytime you see salah, anytime you see sadaqah, these things are connected always in the Quran. Brother Muhi, over to you. Shed some light on us, and then we'll open the floor with some questions. I've got some questions, they've got some questions, and we'll go through those.
Shukran. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, the organizers. I am a new Florida resident, so in 2023 came to Tampa and have been connected in the Muslim philanthropy space for over 20 years. My first interaction was through my local mosque in Canton, Michigan. Saw my parents being civic leaders, volunteers, building an institution, and through the youth group invited Islamic Relief to our mosque from the 90s on. And seeing people like Anwar Khan, who co-founded Islamic Relief USA, do this as a career provided me with a lot of inspiration. And I went to the University of Michigan, and there was an internship called the Development Summer Internship Program. And as many in our community either go into medicine, law, or engineering, I deviated from that path. And it was this internship that showed me that development can be a career. I got to learn from people at the university where there were 500 people just in development, from marketing and communications to data analytics to relationship building to being frontline fundraisers, working with athletics, the hospital, alumni relations, so on and so forth. So that was my entry. I was lucky and fortunate to work with the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, ISP, does research on the American Muslim community. I was their first full-time development hire. From there, I went back to my master's at the University of Michigan in public administration and nonprofit management. Since then, I've gotten a few certifications along the way, but primarily focused on institution building, nonprofit management, and building sustainable organizations. I worked at Tayyab Collective in the San Francisco Bay Area, lived there for about 10 years. I worked at the American Red Cross, building relationships with high net worth individuals to support the mission. And through all of those experiences, thought that it would be good to manage relationships of Muslim philanthropists to showcase our collective power and what we can do. So from there, talked to hundreds of nonprofit leaders to source who I would trust as co-founders of American Muslim Community Foundation. I didn't just want it to be Muhi's boys or friends from the community, but I really wanted people who would add value in different skill sets to the team. So we recruited somebody with an IT background, somebody with a finance background, somebody with other skill sets. And alhamdulillah, since 2016, we've been able to open and manage 225 donor advised funds.
MashaAllah.
And it's still just a drop in the ocean, right? Like there's so many more Muslim families who can open donor advised funds, who can take advantage of these types of tools. And many of them are at Fidelity Charitable or Schwab Charitable or other institutions. But I think there's value in putting our money, our resources into our community and showcase our collective power. So by doing that, alhamdulillah, we've been able to give out $21 million
MashaAllah.
to institution, like over 900 institutions in the United States. So we have a director of nonprofits, a director of donor relations, we have a accountant, a marketing person, a grant writer. We've built our institution from the ground up. And alhamdulillah, it's been a blessed journey. I think there's so much potential, and I get excited when I come to talk about AMCF because I see it serving the community first and foremost. And there's a lot of things that we can focus on, from, the importance of zakat to the need for sustainable organizations, and the other service that AMCF provides are what are called endowments or awqaf, which many of you are likely familiar with because there's a deep Islamic tradition of endowments. I was fortunate to travel to Morocco, where the first university, Al-Qarawin, was established by Fatima al-Fihri and an endowment. So there's also her sister, Maryam al-Fihri, who established Al-Andalus Mosque in Morocco as well. So in Fez, there's a big culture. And to this day, these institutions are operating hundreds of years later, right? So with that mindset, what can we do for hundreds of years to come in the United States? And I'll pause there. I prepared so many notes, but I don't want to be, boring you with so many other things that we could talk about. But I think what's most important is claiming ownership of the power that each and every one of you hold, and imagining the collective power that you have. If you think about the position American Muslims are in, from political landscape, from an economic landscape, from a social, educational landscape, alhamdulillah, there are so many good things, but there needs to be so much more work done. We can try to sugarcoat it and say we've achieved these echelons, but at the same time, we're not there, right? So if we can strategically build our economic power, to build our institutions, that's when we will see the rise and impact of the capacity that our community has. And I know we have the talent. I know we have the resources. I know we have the capability, but the communication, the strategy, the implementation is not there. And my hope is that through institutions like the ones here, South Florida Muslim Federation, bringing us together, a community that can come together, learn together, give together, be more strategic about their time and their resources and their talent. All of these things can then make a ripple effect difference in these categories, right? And it's not a competitive landscape. We have to have a mindset of barakah. We have to have a mindset that it takes all of us to work collectively to do this, right? So I'll pause there. I'll let you ask some questions, and then maybe I'll come back to the notes if we didn't cover some key things.
Yeah, thank you, Muhi. You touched upon a couple of really cool paradigms, interesting paradigms. One paradigm that I heard you say is collective power. Some of you guys who've been to some of my South Florida workshops, you've heard me speak to the amount of philanthropy in the American Muslim community. You've also heard me say recently in the last year, what's got me really inspired and shifting is the fact that American Muslims donate $4.3 billion a year. And even though American Muslims donate $4.3 billion a year, I don't have to tell you how we weren't able to make a difference with our political power. We were not. We were not able to mobilize that philanthropy to change policy, human rights policy. Let's just go to the basics, domestic and abroad. So that by itself has really, really, really gotten me passionate. I'm very passionate now. Everywhere I go, every khutbah I go to, every talk I do with youth. Last night I was upstairs talking to the youth. I talk about how, guys, there's philanthropic power in this American Muslim community, and the American Muslim imperative is to leverage that power for policy change. As American Muslims, that's our imperative. When 10/7 happened, I was invited to give a khutbah at Adams Center, which is one of the largest masjids in the DMV area. And that Friday, I wasn't prepared. I was not prepared. And I'm going to be vulnerable for a minute, tell you guys a quick story. The Friday after 10/7, I gave a khutbah. And while I'm giving this khutbah, my topic was completely different than what was going on. There was an elephant in the room. I didn't prepare. I didn't think about it. I was that 44-year-old dad of 6, second generation American-born Muslim, thinking, well, my job is just to go make sure people are successful, make sure we fulfill our fara'id, make sure we participate, make sure we protect the next generation. You know, that's the playbook. That's what we tell everybody, right? That's what we tell our kids. That's what we think about. But what ends up happening is after my khutbah, Muhi, I'm standing and this brother's walking towards me. I still remember his face. He had pain on his face. And he came to me and he said, Brother Tayyab, he said, Sheikh. I'm like, no, I'm not a sheikh. Because I just finished a khutbah. He says, I came today to this Jummah to be with the Ummah, to hear what I need to do now for the people that are going through what they're going through. And in that moment, my whole flight home, I live in Orlando, Florida, as you guys know. Many of you guys know. My whole flight home that weekend, that's all I could think about is what's my role? What's my role? And the resulting answer to that question was my role, is to organize collective American Muslim philanthropy as social good economic power to make change, human rights change, domestic and abroad. That is our role. We need to mobilize, organize, professionalize our social good to create impact.
So I'll speak on that a little bit in terms of finding your why. What are you passionate about? What difference can you make with your skill set? And we often hear about the 3 T's of time, talent, and treasure, right? How can I use my time to benefit others? How can I to benefit others? How can I use my skill set to benefit others? But I want to take that a little bit deeper. And if you look into philanthropy, the Greek translation is for the love of mankind, right? Doing things to make the world a better place. But if you really look at the essence of it, in development and fundraising, what we teach is that philanthropy is to discover and help others discover the joy of giving, right? When we part with what isn't ours because it belongs to Allah, right? We may have this sense of need for security and wealth because it's true. We want a roof over our head. We want a meal for our family. And alhamdulillah, many of us have much more than that, right? So what are we doing with that? I wouldn't call it abundance, but that trust that Allah has given us for that wealth that we have, whether it's a lot, whether it's a little. And how are we mobilizing that to make our communities stronger? So in terms of time, yes, volunteer wherever you can. In terms of treasure, again, support those institutions that you want. In terms of talent, make sure that you are providing value where you volunteer.
And then there's also testimony. So a fourth T is testimony. And with that, it's using your voice to speak on behalf and empower other institutions, to use your social capital among your sphere of influence to make a difference. And the last is the truth. So if we found our philanthropy in ethical frameworks and principles, we will bring our community closer to justice. We will bring our community closer to achieving that economic power that we have and that we deserve. So if we, again, that's time, treasure, talent, testimony, and truth.
I love it. I love the 5 T's. So let's talk about the available philanthropy in Florida. You guys want to hear some stats and some numbers? Yeah, we have some community leaders and community mobilizers in the room. You know, the Prophet ﷺ, this one hadith that as we get closer, a day will come when Muslims will be like ants and have no power, right? And my son, and I have 6 kids, alhamdulillah. He's like, Dad, Abu, you're always out there saying, let's mobilize for power. Here's the American Muslim imperative and what we're supposed to be doing and youth. And this is what the future should look like. But, you know, we're like ants now with a defeatist attitude. And I'm like, I don't know about you, son, but I'm not going to go up in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, I folded because, well, you said we're like ants. And I kind of concluded that we were ants today, a bunch of ants and no power. No, I refuse to go out like that. I definitely refuse to go out like that. And I'll tell you that there's far more power available. Muhi, in the United States, 2024, based on a 2% estimate,
Okay.
6.68 million. 6.68 million. You know, they've been telling us 1% since Pew did the research in like 2016 and 2017. Total Muslims in Florida, any guesses? 500,000, you're spot, Samir. South Florida Muslim Federation founder right here, guys. He's got the numbers spot on. Yes, yes, right at 500,000, absolutely. Muslim households in Florida, the household number, and this is taking an average of between 2 and 3 household members. Now, I'm on the top end of that number because, you know, we're a household of 8, alhamdulillah, 6 and my wife and I. But approximately 170,000 Muslim households in Florida, based on a 2.51 average, okay? Next, Muslim students in Florida. By the way, I went to the University of Florida, and you know, your wife now is at University of South Florida.
Yeah.
And UF at the time was 40,000 students. I think it's over 100,000 students now. Like these UF campuses are massive. Like they're like Texas campuses. In Florida, the state of Florida registers 1.1 million college students statewide. And if you take our percentage, the estimate is essentially 22,000 Muslim students. I love that number. That excites me. 22,000 students. That means 2 to 3 decades from now. How many executive directors, CEOs, employers, restaurant owners are we going to have? 22,000. Now, are we seeing 22,000 in every single masjid? Probably not. We need to get to work. But I'll tell you what, last night I was really excited because I met Hamza Yaqub. After many years, he's a Young Muslims alumni. I'm a Young Muslims alumni. And he was telling me about how they have something called Real Talk here. And he was showing me cool pictures. South Florida is really cool. Like, I know you're from California, but Florida is really cool. So check this out. Masjids. How many masjids do you think there are in Florida? Brother Samir's nailing it. He's nailing it. You know what? We're going to cut him off. No. Yeah, the answer is basically about 200 masjids, based on Dr. Ihsan Bagby's research. About 200 masjids. I like that number. Makes me feel happy. Islamic schools, Muhi, as of 2025, any estimates on Islamic schools? No, there's nearly, in the whole country, there's 400, by the way. In the whole country. In the whole country, there's 400 Islamic schools serving approximately 75,000 students. In Florida, it's 22. He got it again. He said 25. It's 22, but that was based on last year's number. And according to the Florida Department of Education, because they all got to get registered, the schools got to get registered, it's 4,800 Islamic school students. I like that number. That means 4,800 if Islamic schools serve the purpose of building leaders, inshallah, because the Islamic schools can't accommodate all Muslim students. But in their best dream and in their best day, if the Islamic schools had every resource possible to them, we can all agree they'll develop some leaders, right? Inshallah. So that means 5,000 leaders coming out in the next decade or two if we did our work right. That's a cool story. All right, next. Muslim nonprofits, just all the other nonprofits in the US. We're talking about philanthropy right now and power philanthropy. Muslim nonprofits in the United States, in the US, 1.5 million.
Total.
Yeah. And the estimate of US Muslim nonprofits across the country is 10,000.
Including mosques, social service organizations, schools, everything.
Everything, absolutely. And now Florida.
A stat about that.
Yeah.
According to 10,000 nonprofits, but a majority of them have budgets under $250,000 with less than 2 staff, right? So again, if we're able to harness and empower these 10,000 nonprofits, whether they're schools or mosques or social service organizations, imagine the impact that it would have, not only for the image of Islam in America, but for the local communities that those nonprofits serve, right? Many of them are social service organizations providing food to the local community, maybe a healthcare clinic providing free services. There's so much good that the American Muslim community is doing. And to capture that, AMCF runs what's called the Muslim Philanthropy Awards. So recognizing organizations and individuals who serve their time in their community and give back to celebrate the accomplishments of the community as well.
Yes, mashallah. And then out of those 10,000 Muslim out of the 1.48 or 1.5 million nonprofits in the US, 115,000 in Florida. Out of the 115,000 in Florida, guess how many are total Muslim nonprofits?
400.
That's the only one Brother Samir didn't get close. 773. So if you were to take like all the Muslim nonprofits, it's 773. This includes 200 masjids. This includes 21 Islamic schools. So the balance is 551 Muslim nonprofits. Now let's get into some numbers. And then, you know, Brother Muhi, I want to, if you could think of some case examples of how around the country or locally where philanthropy changed public opinion. So the numbers. Americans altogether donate 500 billion a year. That's a lot, mashallah, right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them all Jannah and give them reward for that and bring them closer to Tawheed in their giving. Let it be the door that opens to humble their heart to see Hidayah. Ameen. Okay, now 4.3 of that, so just shy of 10%, is Muslims, 4.3 billion. All right, now let's talk about Florida. In Florida, how much do you think all American Muslim households give a year? Brother Samir, gonna take out a stab? Anybody? 4.3 overall.
5 million.
5 million? What else?
4.3 billion overall?
4.3 is all American Muslims. How much are Florida Muslims? Those 500,000 Muslims in Florida, and 170,000 households.
100 million.
There's a lot of rich Muslims in Florida, so you maybe want to go higher.
I would say 400 million.
I like it. I like it. I like where our head's at. It's 283 million. 283 million. 283 million. And then you're like, wait a minute, $283 million. Where's that money at? Our masjid can barely raise $250,000. Muhi just said average Muslim nonprofit has how much of an annual budget?
$250,000 or less.
Brother Tayyab, are you crazy? 283 million? Brother Muhi just said 250 and less than 2 employees. Where's all that money? A lot of it goes to non-Muslim nonprofits. All right, I got one last stat and give you some time to tell us, inspire us, Brother Muhi. How do we, what happens if we mobilize this? Does it change the narrative? Zakat. Let's talk about zakat. Just zakat now. I'm in the zakat bucket. Ramadan's coming up, 30 days. Less. It's like right here. MashaAllah. And all the nonprofit folks are like, oh my God, I'm not ready for my campaign. Yeah? Total zakat in Florida. The average Muslim household in the US donates about $2,000 a year in zakat. This is average. So you take a billionaire and you take, a college kid who has to pay zakat driving Uber. Okay? So that's still $2,000. Now, with approximately 170,000 Muslim households, this is how I'm working my math. 170 Muslim households at 2,000 average zakat. You guys buy into my numbers? That's the best math we got today. There isn't better math than what I'm telling you right now. Unless you want to fund a research project. All right. So that turns out to 184 million in annual zakat. 184 million, 0.1 exactly, million in zakat. That's a lot of zakat, mashallah. So now with all that money in Florida, Brother Muhi,
Right.
inspire us. How can we use that to change the narrative in Florida?
So essentially, zakat as a principle is also meant to change the local community around you, right? Many of us want to give our zakat to causes overseas because the dollar goes a lot more, there's need. Yes, those are all valid things. But if you have the opportunity to give both locally and internationally, I would say that that's better than just giving internationally. The reason I say that, and if we want to talk about narratives and inspiring impact, AMCF led a Bay Area collective giving. So if you don't know about giving circles, there's a little blurb here on the poster. But essentially, it's a group of friends, families, individuals, local community members putting their resources together, nominating charities, and democratically voting on which institution will receive the funding. So regardless of whether one person has the capacity to only give $50 and another family has the capacity to give $5,000, they each get one vote, right? It's democratizing philanthropy. And this Bay Area collective giving circle, these families decided we'll put in a minimum of $5,000. And there were only 20 families, but alhamdulillah, that's $100,000, right? So they decided we're going to give 50,000 to a local charity and we're going to give 50,000 to a national charity. One of the charities that they selected was called the Crescent Zakat Fund at Stanford University's Lucille Packard Children's Hospital, where they have a zakat fund just for Muslim families who are experiencing childhood cancer. They cover all their fees to reduce the burden of that experience. So alhamdulillah, this community of Muslims made that gift at a very high respected institution and garnered the interest and support of the hospital itself to also match into that fund, saying if we're going to give $50,000 here, what can the institution itself do to ensure that these patients receive the care that they need? So that was inspiring more impact through the narrative of zakat and the potential that it can have. Another example of this giving circle, there was a local mosque in Oakland called Lighthouse, and they have feeding programs in the local community. So it was to provide more food, more sustainable resources to help families in need. And again, all of this can be replicated, whether it's at a $500 level or a $5,000 level, it doesn't matter. But if you think of, wanting to give zakat to people locally, AMCF is also working on a national zakat fund for individual assistance, right? Many a times we entrust our zakat and give it to institutions who then find an individual, because zakat has to go to individuals, right? But then these institutions will eventually find the individuals to give it to. What we want to do is donor to zakat recipient direct, right? We're pooling all of the resources of the community and giving those resources to individuals locally who are in need. So these are certain ways in which we can try to make that impact.
Thank you. So one of the stories that comes to my mind, and you talked about personal story. When I left the University of Florida, I went to Chicago and I lived there 15 years. I worked at a hospital system that was owned and managed by a Christian church. And 3 days after 9/11, I was working there around 9/11. One of the other employees said, "Hey, Tayyab, I want to take you out to lunch." We go to lunch and he says, "How you doing? I want to check up on you." And I said to him, I'm like, and I'm 21, 22 years old at the time. I'm turning 45 next month, inshallah. And he says, I want to take you out to lunch, just check up on you. I said, cool, go to lunch. And he says, "How you doing?" I said, "Well, man, like, I feel like people are staring at me now. I feel like, my wife does hijab and, they're staring at her. I feel like I can't go out. I feel like people are looking at us like terrorists. I wish they didn't believe this stuff on TV." And he said to me, he goes, "Can I be honest with you for a minute?" I said, "Yeah, for sure. I need honesty right now." And he says, "They have no other experience with you or your community beside what's on TV because you guys are too FUBU." FUBU means for us, by us. He goes, "You're too FUBU. You're too for us, by us. You raise your money, you work in our businesses, you raise your money, and then you spend it on your own mosques, your own free clinics, your own food pantries, and you're helping your own people." He goes, "So who's going to believe otherwise than what they see on TV?" Brothers and sisters, a year later, I quit that job. And I went and spent the last 25 years doing social good, social entrepreneurship, and philanthropy. Inshallah, I'm finishing my doctorate thesis in March. The study of my paper is the failure of Muslim-led nonprofits, strategies post-startup.
Unfortunately, there are too many examples.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think to that point as well, as Muhi Khwaja, as Tayyab Yunus, as an individual, when we do give to our alma mater, to the Red Cross, to Cancer Society, and other American-based institutions that aren't Muslim-led, it's just a gift from Muhi Khwaja or Tayyab Yunus. But if you put your money into American Muslim Community Foundation and then direct your charity to American Cancer Society, to American Red Cross, it's a gift from the Muslim community on your behalf. So it raises, again, the social good of the entire community when you're giving through a community foundation.
Absolutely. And that's shaping public narrative. When, inshallah, your masjids, your community centers, your Islamic, in Florida, I'm Floridian, and this is the boat I'm in. This is the mission I'm on. Brother Samir and Florida Muslim Federation, I don't know if you know this or not, but it was called South Florida Muslim Federation. And if you look at the banner, it doesn't say South Florida anymore.
It does. This one says Florida Muslim Conference.
This one doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's going to be Florida Muslim Conference, and it's changing and it's transitioning to be all of Florida, which I'm super excited about being in Orlando. That
Right.
Now we need to take collective power, 170,000, inshallah, households in Florida, and unlock that. So one of the things that I'm taking away from Brother Muhi today, and that you should take away and write down, is if you're on a board of an Islamic school, you're on the board of a masjid, you're on a nonprofit, one of the things you want to do is think about how are we taking our service to the rest of the community and changing the opinion of people. That should be on your 3 to 5 year strategic roadmap, number one. Number two, pooling philanthropy, as Brother Muhi is suggesting. And one of the instruments for that is, of course, as he's described, American Muslim Community Foundation. Another instrument of that could be your own institution. So your own masjid goes when, you know, Orlando Health System is doing a fundraiser, you show up to that foundation, you buy a table, the board's there. And we know one of the categories of zakat, and I'm not a scholar, is somebody who's on the fence. And I'll tell you right now, Gain Peace is a dawah organization. Why Islam is a dawah organization. We have many more who are out there doing dawah. They can't keep up with the demand. They're telling us they can't keep up with the demand right now because hate also opens the door to someone who wants to learn Islam just as much as love does. Is happening. So your organizations, number one, build capacity, as Brother Muhi is suggesting. Number two, build those instruments to change public opinion and serve that community that's out there. What else can we be doing here in Florida, Brother Muhi?
So AMCF joined the Florida Muslim Federation. So, you know, we want to put our money where our heart is, right? So we joined the Federation. We're doing that across the country at different shura councils across the nation, because we believe in this model of collaborating. In terms of looking at the trends of philanthropy for 2025, for moving forward, collective giving is on the rise. Collaborative funds, giving circles, these types of movements will be projected to double this year. And there are thousands of giving circles across the country. Even in Tampa, there's one called 200 Muslim Women Who Care. Fantastic organization, great model. Each member gives $100 a quarter, and they distribute $10,000 to a local charity each quarter. Also, they just opened a chapter in Dallas. So again, very similarly, AMCF can manage a giving circle. Your nonprofit institution can set up an endowment, make your organization more sustainable for the long run. And I think the community here, again, it doesn't lack the resources, it doesn't lack the power, but maybe efforts around collaboration could be better. And I think that's why it's important that each and every one of you are here at this conference, because you believe in that as well.
Thank you. And then the other piece that I heard you say that's come up a few times, and it's a challenge in the way of what we're talking about, is really good talent in your organizations.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, last night, I spoke to a room full of youth. That was my topic, was with all the youth here at the Florida conference. After I was done, Muhi, I couldn't make it to the door because I had 10 or 15 youth basically say, "Can I talk to you?" "Sure. What's up?" "I just graduated with a biomedical degree. I don't want to go to medical school. I just graduated with poli-sci and I want to be an attorney. I want to work in social good space." What's happened is that as much as we think that our job is to make sure our kids have the most stable job and income, and then whatever is your excess in terms of sadaqah and time, that framework doesn't work in their mind anymore. The game's changed completely. The American Muslim youth are far more passionate about their faith than ever before. Actually, a study.
And I think they can afford to take that risk because of the generation that came before us.
Yep.
Right?
And millennials, I'm a millennial, and I'm looking around the room, I see other millennials. Millennials actually, and I'm going to be vulnerable for a minute, millennials actually suffer from internalized Islamophobia. We actually, like, I carry that, you know, but my kids don't as much. They don't. You know, they have no problem going out there carrying their Islam, you know, their Free Palestine, whatever it's going to be, whatever the cause they care about. with I am a Muslim is on their shirt. I might, be struggling to wake them up for Fajr, but, but they're going to have their Islam on them, period. And so what I'm saying is to you, if you're a nonprofit leader in here and you're an institutional builder, my dad was one of the founders of ICNA. And in my conversation with him, am I in a safe place? Yeah?
Yeah.
In my conversation with dad, and he's a cardiologist, he's got 8 kids. Alhamdulillah, none of his 8 kids, are in a position where they really need his transfer of wealth. And so he has a conversation with me. What should I be doing with it, son? And I said to him, my advice to what I call the institutional builders. These are the doctors, the engineers who came in the 60s and the 70s, the business owners who came in the 60s and 70s, and they built the masjids, they built the Islamic schools, and they recruited the scholars to come over. Then they sent the scholars, kids overseas to come back. Then they started building the qalams, they started building the institutions. That's the evolution of the American Muslim community. And I told Dad, Samir, I said, Dad, you should direct your philanthropy to 2 things. One is capacity building for the same nonprofits you supported. Because you built them and then you funded programs, but you didn't fund talent. You didn't fund system building. You didn't fund infrastructure. You missed it. And that's why those organizations are stuck in startup. That's number
Right.
1.
I want to add to that in terms of this transfer of generational wealth. In the United States, by 2050, $85 trillion will transfer between the generations. And of course, American Muslims are part of that. So I love the fact that your dad is having these conversations with you, number 1. And I'd be curious to hear the rest of your response.
Yeah, so the first thing was invest in talent building. And the second thing was invest in giving circles and endowment, power building with money.
Yeah.
Because most of the guys like my dad, may Allah give them all Jannah, they would go to one dinner 5,000, one dinner 10,000, one dinner 20,000, one dinner 50,000. And they're the silent, mashallah, donors because that was the culture of giving. But what we need to do now is 2 things. One is all those, and the other part about this transfer of wealth, Muhi, as you know better than me, is, you give the most in your 50s because you got cash flow and wealth. And then 60s, cash flow and wealth. But then the cash flow stops because you're slowing down. In your 70s, Dad's not seeing as many patients as he was. He's still working, by the way. But he's not seeing, patients. He's not doing procedures. So cash flow slows down in your 70s, so you have your wealth. So he's not, so at that stage, if you guys are institutional builders out there, you should be directing your philanthropy to capacity building, and number 2, philanthropy building, structures that will pool that funding and create a better story for the youth and a better story for the public, inshallah.
When you get to that point of 70s, if you have a IRA, individual retirement account, you can actually give from your IRA to charities. So instead of taking what's called the RMD, or required minimum distribution, you can do what's called a qualified charitable distribution. So tell your parents, or people of that age to give of their assets as opposed to their cash, right? Similarly, we have another sponsor, Amana Mutual Funds, and there are other Sharia compliant investment opportunities for the Muslim community to put their cash into becoming assets, right? And if you can give of your assets, it's smarter because those assets will grow over time. What maybe was $1,000 15, 20 years from now will be valued at $5,000, right? So if you take that long-term investment, you can make an impact of that 5,000 with only that $1,000, if that makes sense. So be smart about your investments so that you can be smart about your philanthropy.
One more, the 3 pieces One is the capacity building. Two is power of philanthropy, organizing philanthropy. Third is leadership development, youth development.
Absolutely.
You know, at CARE, Robert, who is the government affairs director, he basically said in 2 to 3 election cycles, we're going to see more Muslim congressional,
Yeah.
more Muslim people, because the youth are now jumping in. Last night, one of the kids that asked me a question, to me, they're kids. I have two
Young adults. We'll call them young adults.
I have young adults. I have one out of college and I have one in law school. So alhamdulillah. You know, they said, you know, my parents don't want me to abandon my law track because, and I want to go work for a nonprofit. And if I abandon my law track, then I won't have that financial stability. I won't have the same income. You know, my sister Afia, she's an attorney. She's an immigration attorney. She's upstairs right now talking. And when she got to the hotel last night, we ordered some Chinese food and we were hanging out and catching up. She lives in New York. I live in Orlando. And I asked her, I'm like, what's the average? What does an attorney make nowadays? Like, unless you, and she goes, most of these attorneys coming out, they don't have the same ambition to start a firm.
Mm.
They
So
don't.
they
They
go
don't.
Big law, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
And $120,000 to $130,000. Muhi, director of development at, you know, an organization. What do they make? Average salary.
They can make that or more.
Director of
With
development.
years of experience, but out of college, maybe starting 80 to 100K.
Not at an unprofessionalized, on its journey to build capacity Muslim nonprofit. But I'll tell you right now, in Dallas, the professionalized organizations, yeah, $150,000, $200,000. The relief organizations that are professionalized, absolutely. The educational institutions that are professionalized, absolutely. The care chapters, the justice organizations, absolutely. $120,000, $150,000, $180,000. Now, what I tell the youth is, no matter what degree you get, doctor, lawyer, nonprofit, you know, whatever, you don't make those numbers if you're mediocre.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Whatever you do, you have to work hard and you have to do it with ihsan. My friends and I, we launched a brand. It's called Do Good, Live Well. And the idea is based on, in Islam, how we learn how you should always do good. And by doing good, Allah takes care of you. Allah gives you peace. And that's how you find that sort of mutma'inna track. And so we branded it and the kids are wearing it. Like, you can do good. You can live well if you do good. I do want to take some Florida questions, though. Should we take some Florida questions?
Yeah. Before we do that, and as you think of the questions to ask, you know, you talked a lot about leadership development. In the nonprofit sector, we need to focus on retaining talent, providing equitable salaries, all of these things. So to train the leaders, right, there's a lot of opportunities. There's Intuitive Foundation offers services, there's Oak Tree Institute, there's AMCF offers leadership development, sometimes for free, sometimes paid, but there are ways to make your teams more professional by implementing strategies around best practices, whether it's for marketing, HR, fundraising, financial management. Again, our community has the skill set, has the people who can give back, volunteer, be on your boards in those specific areas. And to the young adult who wanted to possibly be a lawyer, I would say focus on planned giving. This is all about creating trusts, creating wills, estate plans to fortify your wealth and not have it be caught in probate after you pass away. And probate is like state tax or federal tax. You know, the government always wants a piece of the pie, but if you put it into a trust, it avoids that. So we need lawyers in this specific skill set for Sharia compliant wills and trusts that will leave a portion of a family's wealth. Islam allows for up to 1/3 to be given to charity, right? So if somebody's kids do not want the wealth, then sure, they can give more. but it is encouraged in Islam to leave up to a third to charity. So again, through planned giving, through donor advised funds, and these opportunities to be more strategic about our wealth and our power, we can empower our community. But
Inshallah.
let's hear some questions, inshallah.
Yes, sir. Right here and then there.
You want to pass the mic?
Hold on. I got. Oh, you got this.
Assalamu alaikum.
Mhm.
Jazakallah khair for your support and impact. This is beautiful and program. I had many questions actually, but I'm going to keep it short. One of the questions I had actually is about young people. How can we engage and inspire them? But then your comment about millennium and how they carry the package, the political package, which we all carry. I came here when I was 21, and I still carry that. Palestinians, issues and the problems, and I cannot get past that. So how can we get the young people and people like us engaged and get inspired? The second part of it, which could be somehow related to it, is that can we consider social impact businesses as part of entrepreneurial path, blending basically the giving, the traditional giving with the entrepreneurial spirit?
Here you go.
Would be, can that be considered part of that?
Yeah, jazakallah khair. So, when I'm talking to youth about career path, I always start off with two basic fundamental principles. Number one is rizq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So never think that, whatever path you choose, it has a direct impact on your rizq. You have to, and then the second piece, without going too long on that, is whatever you do, you have to work hard. I mean, I see, plumbers, carpenters rolling through with $250,000 trucks. Those cost more than a Rolls Royce sometimes. You guys know, you're in Florida, and you see these, and he's pulling a boat. He's pulling a $500,000 boat. So the second principle is you have to work hard. If you're a physician, you're an attorney, you're a business owner, work hard. So whatever you're gonna do, work hard and do it with ihsan. And then the third piece regarding motivation, I would say that that's what's worked for me as just a dad is, and my other sister Sadia, she's a mental health professional. And what I learned from her a lot is, as parents, what we want to always say is, I love you for who you are, not what you do or what you've done. So that narrative puts them in a growth mindset, enables them, empowers them, unlocks them. And that we can unpack that. That's a huge longer conversation. And when the kid says, hey, look, I got an A, you're like, good job. They say, oh, I got a C. Why'd you get a C? We're programming that child to think that the only reason why we love them is when they get A's and when they do stuff. So they're always like, look what I did, look what I got. And really they're saying, please love me. So those are on the career side, start with rizq is from Allah. You have to put that aqidah in. You have to nail that. Otherwise, you're going to end up likely with somebody with some anxiety issues about rizq. So you have to bring in that concept of aqidah. Number two, work hard, ihsan, the concept of ihsan no matter what you do. Number three, you love them no matter what. Now, regarding philanthropy, the youth nowadays, they are so inspired and they want to do social good. And so when I'm talking to a youth, I tell them there's three tracks. There's social entrepreneurship. Rollins College has one of the best, it's in Orlando, one of the best master's programs in social entrepreneurship in the country. The next one is a master's in nonprofit management. UCF Orlando, I'm advocating for Orlando, one of the top nonprofit management schools in the country. And then philanthropy, where Buhi and I teach together and work together, is at the Lilly School of Philanthropy. There's a Muslim Philanthropy Initiative. And then what I say, and you guys can think about this as dads and moms in here, is philanthropy is how do you understand a social problem, and then what is root cause and how do you solve it? And then where do you get the resources to solve it? Nonprofit management is how do we build a business structure to build capacity and the leadership models to address this problem. That's nonprofit management. And then third piece is social enterprises. Social enterprises basically says, hey, there's a community in Guatemala, and we're never going to create a sustainable funding solution here. But if we uplift them, give them microloans, build wells, train the guy and give a truck to the guy who's going to repair the well when it breaks, charge people 10 cents for water so the money pays for the repair of the well. Let's build sustainable markets and sustainable businesses for income. These are three fantastic models. And the last piece, I would say, as dads and moms out here, how do we get kids involved? First, they got to know you love them no matter what. Number two, they got to know Allah loves them no matter what. Number three, I would say, is every child in the world, every person in the world has a cause they care about. They have a cause they care about, and they have a superpower. And so you have to figure out what is their cause. My daughter Zahra, for example, she really loves reading and she loves books and she wants to teach books. My daughter Alia, she's all about social justice. She's dreaming to be the first hijabi Chief Justice of the United States. Everyone say inshallah.
Inshallah.
Right? My son Muhammad, I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because this is an example and there's not too many out there. But my son Muhammad, his idea is, Abu, Islamic schools are not adapting to the disruption in education, and I want to solve that. I'm going to create a solution for how Islamic schools need to reinvent the delivery of education. So that's his passion. All right, son, how can I help you? What do you need? So the journey to that, though, is when they were small, we engaged them in philanthropy. We took them to orphanages. There's no orphanages in the US, by the way. So we went to South America, we went to the Philippines, we went to India, not India, Pakistan, and we took them to poverty, which is how a lot of us grew up. When I was growing up, my mom and dad took me to Pakistan every year. Couldn't speak or do much, but we were out there and we walked the streets and we saw it. We got to do the same thing here. Organize your youth in engaging in philanthropy. It humbles the heart. And a humble heart can see hidayah. An arrogant heart cannot see hidayah. One last thing, sorry, movie. I went to a philanthropy conference in Rome last year. It was Muslim philanthropists, Jewish philanthropists, Christian philanthropists went to meet the Pope at the Vatican. And the Pope, his representative, gave a speech on behalf of the Pope. And one of the things he said stood out to me forever. He basically said, we, the people of faith, have fought each other for thousands of years. Now we need to come together to fight a common enemy. And this is where the dad piece comes in. You know, being a dad's tough, right? And he says, the common enemy we, the people of faith, have for the next 1,000 years is actually apathy. Apathy. Apathy is the opposite of empathy. Apathy is you just don't care. These kids don't care. I don't care. Shrug the shoulder, walk off, go play video games. That's apathy. So focus on addressing the apathy early and then create instruments of opportunity to engage in social good. And then inshallah, everything else will work out.
I love the commentary, and I think the opportunity for youth as well is demonstrating, but leading by example as well, right? And if we are able to create intergenerational or youth giving circles, even call it $10 per person, right? Something very economical. Even they, through their chores, can probably spend the money themselves to do $10 one time, and you get 100 local youth to give $1,000 collectively to a cause that they care about. And again, finding out the curiosity of what they care about can be developed through even concepts like the Japanese have ikigai, right? It's purpose of life, purpose of living, looking at the world from a context of what you're good at, what you can do for a living, what you can be, what the world needs, and something that brings you joy, right? And when you combine all of that, you have your purpose of life. But how can we instill in children what their purpose is? It's through curiosity, it's through engaging them in all of these ways. I know we're at time, but why don't we take one more question if we can?
There was the brother here also. Khalid, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum
My name
salam.
is Tayyab Qureshi, and I'm with the Friends of Humanity International Union. What is a real world out here? We do social services. We receive applications from the local communities. We came across one particular case where a sister called and said, my father passed away, and he had multiple businesses, but never told my mother or myself where that money is and where those businesses are.
Mhm.
We went to see an attorney, and attorney is asking for $70,000 retainer fee to sort out our wealth. Real-time solutions are just not available. We do talk a lot, but they are not a real-time solution, real-time connections. So we told the sister, we do not engage in legal arbitration. We cannot advise you legally what to do, what not to do. So the awareness must be created to those brothers who are doing cash businesses, and they are keeping everything in their chest,
Mm.
not knowing when the death is.
Cash business. Probably.
Yeah.
Real world issue out here is children are refusing to take inheritance. It is so legally complicated if you are with Vanguard or with any other organization. What happens? Children give up, parents are not into legal battle, they give up, and a large portion of Muslim wealth just evaporates. It's sitting out there with Vanguard. Maybe you guys can look into Vanguard.
Sure.
Money which is not claimed by the Muslims who have left our world. The other thing is, why do we have a lukewarm reaction to wildfires in LA? What is wrong with giving our money to a non-Muslim charitable organization? For God's sake, go out, give blankets, Red Cross, do something.
Right.
I do not like this deferred plan, looking for an Islamic charity to show up and then give.
Sure.
I think that attitude has to. Thank you. I'll leave it for you.
Thank you so much for the comments. In terms of how American Muslims can be more mindful of their legacy planning, AMCF established what's called the National Muslim Planned Giving Council. So it's working with CPAs, wealth managers, estate planning lawyers to inform their clients around how to avoid these issues. And again, there are Muslim estate planning lawyers who can help you distribute your wealth transfer. If the kids don't want to, you can put it into a nonprofit donor advised fund, right? The donor advised fund can hold on to it. The family can then say, we care about education, we care about social services, we care about health. On an annual basis in perpetuity, give to these causes, and we'll manage that. In terms of, Vanguard, I think those families need to list beneficiary institutions. You can put a nonprofit as a beneficiary on any of those accounts. So if the family is not going to take it, at least a nonprofit can. And then to your last comment about the wildfires, in the past as well, 2023, I believe, there were the wildfires in Maui in Hawaii, right? We did a Muslims for Maui campaign, raised $55,000, distributed that to 10 different charities, non-Muslim charities, working in the community there.
AMCF did it?
Yes. Yeah. So again, we have to be better about educating the community on these opportunities to provide this. But I think in regard to the LA wildfires, unfortunately, there was a long-standing mosque in that community that was burned to the ground. And sure, maybe that caused Muslims to care more about it, and that is unfortunate because Muslims should care about all of these issues that are affecting our neighbors, right? And Muslims should and do give to non-Muslim led charities. There was a study done by ISPU that Muslims are just as likely to give to other faith-based organizations. So I think, again, we need to own that narrative better. And how can we better track that? Through the use of a community foundation.
There's one more question, yeah.
Yeah, let's go to a sister, inshallah. Let's go to a sister, any sister that has a question. Waalaikum salam.
I really appreciate a lot of the things that you guys mentioned. And brother, Allah yarhamah, your father did a great job raising all of you. So just to kind of introduce myself, I'm Sister Salisha and I run a nonprofit grassroots in New York. A lot of people ask why I started and you guys get from personal account. So when I was 16, now I'm 38, my father was murdered and the killer set our home on fire. And so during that time, many people gave me shampoo or underwear or small things. So I love that you mentioned supporting locally because there are many people here who suffer as well. And so that's what inspired me to start my grassroots nonprofit. And basically what I do is recirculating. So I do a lot of clothing drives. And so we sort and anything that is in good condition, we redistribute to, there are many in New York. We have a lot of people from Gaza who came for healthcare. And so we redistribute to shelters that house Muslim women and families and asylum seekers, the list goes on. And what I love about it is we give the opportunity to families who actually receive items when they grow out of things to give back. And they love that they have the opportunity because the mindset of that zakat is for people who can give that $50,000 donation. And they get the opportunity to be a part of that impact. And so to piggyback on what that brother said, I've had some issues when we were collecting for California and the wildfire victims. They're like, no, I'd rather send it to our community. And so my question was, you mentioned that we should make more of an appearance when it comes to giving to non-Muslim nonprofits. And so for instance, like hospitals, like where I am, Northwell, you have Mayo Clinic, a lot of them invest in like Israeli technology. So how can we do a better job of making a presence when we're also kind of nervous of, that contribution and, having to do a lot of research, especially if I'm looking for donors and things like that. So I'm glad that there's, the AMCF community because it's mostly dominated, as you know, the nonprofit space by Zionists. And so it's something that's made it very hard for me as a nonprofit founder. So I hope I was clear in my question, but Jazakallah, thank you again as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, love. It's great to see what you've been able to do from, taking something very personal, vulnerable, and then building a community around it. So, mashallah, may it all be put towards your father's deeds and account.
Airport, like 35 minutes, 40 minutes.
In regard to being cautious of how we partner with institutions that maybe have leanings towards Zionism and things like that, it's just due diligence. Sometimes there might be, you need to be extra cautious. You can try to ask outright before making contributions and agreements. But I think, at the end of the day, we definitely need to stand on our principle. And we also need, I love to say, put our money where our heart is. And I think if we are able to do those things, the rest will sort out after that.
There's one more question, Mary. Okay. You covered it.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers. I love your all the ideas is good, but the best one is like a sustainable program.
Yeah.
That is like we also have the organization is called the Youth Club of America. So and also is connected with a partnership with the Global Organization for Life. So we will start the food program for the community, and as you say, like the youth can give the $10. That's really very good idea. So give us like the more like how we can make our community more sustainable. If you can give like more the programs, so that's how we can do like. Because the all the organizations, if it's work together, we can build our community more stronger.
Of course.
That's really like the very good for the community, because we have to serve our community, make it stronger. That's how we can be like serve the people and the youth
Mhm.
for the future very strong. They
Yeah.
can find their job, they can create here, they can work as a nonprofit. This is really very good things, so they can, they don't, we don't have the parents, they don't need to be forced them to be a doctor or attorney. So they can find a way, they can build their future with the confidence. So that's really good thing that we can teach them. If we can tell the sustainable program more things, that would be
Yeah.
great.
So on sustainability for nonprofit organizations, I think one of the critical things is establishing endowments, right? So an organization, whether it's 1 years old or 100 years old, should have an endowment. The first fundraising campaign in the United States was a mailing campaign that Harvard University did, right? So think hundreds of years ago, and now Harvard has the largest, endowment at a educational institution, right? So we have to be forward thinking. Now, nonprofits often struggle with the sustainability piece. It's not anything new. But I would say focus on your annual fund budget and also an endowment. And these are strategies that you can bring consultants on to further identify what donors in your community can support both causes. So there's a lot of strategy that goes behind it, but an endowment is definitely a good solution. Even let's say your operating budget for your charity is $50,000, try to collect 500,000 to $1 million to sustain that in perpetuity, right? Of course, the org may grow, the budget might increase to 150, 200. You can at least use the endowment to get half of that and then fundraise the rest. So endowments definitely are the key to sustainability for our organizations.
Last one, okay. Like so.
Thank you, brother, for giving a lot of information. We need it. And I also like to thank brother Tayyab for allowing us USA Communicate Clinic last year. One of the investigators over here at SoFlo, and we thank you from there. I have a couple of comments. I will do quick. First of all, this program is very unique, very information over here. But we need to do more of it. The problem we have, and don't take me wrong, every weekend we have fundraising. Part of those $4.3 billion.
Yeah.
My question is how much money we raise, we spend on a lobbying and public relation
Right.
to showcase our Muslim community.
Mhm.
Not much. So we spend a lot of money, we collect a lot of money every weekend in South Florida, we have fundraisers. And we spend the money outside to help our brother and sister, that's good. But we spend nothing on public relations
Yeah.
and lobbying, showing the Muslim cause this country.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion is maybe we should have this program on a quarterly basis. We can bring more people, they listen, because we listen all weekend. Give me money for this orphanage or this orphanage. So
Right.
nobody talks about what you talking about. I
Sure.
appreciate that. Thank you.
We have a collaborative fund for Palestine at AMCF, and that's empowered organizations doing advocacy work at the state, federal level to engage on the causes of Palestine. And similarly, we need to empower institutions like CARE, like Engage, like MPAC, like so many other organizations in this space. So I 100% agree with you. It's about being more forward thinking. And again, put money into an institution that can then do a public grant cycle to empower lobby organizations and things like that.
Jazakallah khair. And then, I'll share the sort of last piece of advice that I gave to my dad and also other institutional builders. I'll tell you, there was one family, we studied donor data, and I saw one family in 60 databases. That means this husband and wife, power couple, they were donating to 60 nonprofits. Kind of like, sounds like what I'm hearing you say, my brother, that every weekend there's a fundraiser. And so what I have heard my mentors of philanthropy, my mentors of nonprofit capacity building and teachers, they say, and I heard them say, and I say it, is, and my wife and I follow this. Every year we decide, okay, where do we want to see impact? And what organization do we want to make a change in? And let's go have conversations with them and make a difference there about that. And then this way, when other people come and say, hey, can you donate to us? Can you donate to us? We're like, this year, my wife and I are committed to this project, right? Towards the end of this year, let us know, inshallah. So that's called strategic philanthropy. So we would leave you with that. Everything we talked about today is about strategic philanthropy, strategic with your organization in terms of building structures of capacity building, structures of philanthropic impact. Be strategic with your time, whether it's one organization volunteering or many organizations. Be strategic also with your treasure. Be strategic with those three things, no matter what you do, and then inshallah, collectively at Florida, will make a difference. I've got a flight to catch at 3, so we're going to close out right on, we're 5 minutes over. I want to thank Brother Muhi. He's going to be here all day. He's got a table outside. Please go by, meet with him, talk to him, find out how they can work. I'm your brother Tayyab Yunus. I live in Florida. I'm available all the time to anybody from Florida. Well, everybody, inshallah, so long as Allah allows. But please, I will always prioritize work with Florida organizations. Any last comments?
Thank you for the opportunity, and inshallah, let's stay in touch.
Jazakallah khairan. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this organization, bless the supporters, bless the board, bless all of you who are here today. May this knowledge today help accelerate and springboard you and your sadaqah and your organization and your leadership to create change in society that betters humanity, as our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was sent as a mercy to humanity. May we fulfill that sunnah as we go and stand in front of Allah at the end of the day. On that day, we're all worried about, and we can stand proud. Ya Allah, we did it. We served humanity in a tough time. Ameen. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I did call. Oh, thank you, Sheikh. How are you? Alhamdulillah.
Thank you, brother.
Oh yeah, for sure. Good to see you. How are you? Good to see you always.
Kenton, Michigan.
Yes. Yes. Are you familiar?
Yes.
I have children.
Oh, okay.
My students.
Oh, no way. Okay.
South Florida, I don't know. Brother Samir might know, but there's also
My students.